YouTube, it's Brian Phillips again, coming to you with an unboxing, garbage bag style, minus a garbage bag. This is the way it's shipped. Looks fine to me. You've seen it before. You're gonna see it again today and see what I think of this. This little, this beaver's gonna be good, I hear. And here to film it is my camera crew. So we're gonna see how this thing works. You get my take on it. I've been watching this thing for many, many moons, and I'm excited to see how it performs in my environment. You can get my take on things. That is an interesting place to have a global power supply adapter.
Oh, just put that anywhere, you know.
Yeah, that was right here. There's a pump in the box. I had no idea that was there. Which, interestingly enough, I wonder if this would work for that adapter from the plane the other day. We'll have to try that. It looks like it would be a perfect adapter. Okay, so this is the XK DHC-2 600, the DHC-2 600, the Untitled Beaver. And as usual with XK products, very well packaged. It's got a nice color manual. That's pretty cool. I wonder if it's in Chinglish. Probably. Oh, forbidden. They have forbidden things. You can't fly with moons and asteroids.
Shoot. Well,
I guess we'll have to do that another time. Do it before the asteroids hit. Okay, so we got a wing packaged in this foam stuff. Pretty exciting. Oh, I like the color. The colors got really small servos on there. Reinforced tape joint. But look how flexible this is. That's just incredible. These servos always make me nervous because they're just so stinking small, and there is most definitely not reinforcement in this wing, guys. Look at that. Nothing. That's why it's so flexible, which is good and bad. It's kind of a double-edged sword because if it's flexible and you make a mistake, it's maybe not going to totally destroy on impact. Okay, we got a bag with some prop, landing gear, and it looks like helicopter push rod adapters. Oh, but look what they did. They're gonna use those for the wings, guys. That's pretty cool. This thing sticks out at an angle, so that's gonna be, that's gonna make it easy to add that. We got a little piece of foam here that blocks the airplane in. So we're gonna pull this out. Oh man, that looks really good. I mean, the foam, you can kind of see the paint. There's some overspray here, but then obviously you got the receiver in there. It looks like this at one point was taped down, no big deal there. Obviously we're gonna have to plug in. Okay, so the gyro stabilizer has a piece of foam under it too. Looks like there's maybe a bind button there. Antenna here, and then the little ESC there. Oh, it's brushless? Sweet, this thing has a brushless motor. I thought it was a brushed motor.
It says it on the box.
Oh, it says it on the box.
Yeah, over there in the corner.
It's brushless. Powerful brushless motor. So we'll see how that performs. Oh man, that power supply is just stuffed in there. This is a 2S pack. Obviously, if it's gonna have a brushless, they generally run a brushless on 2S, but that's not a guarantee. And just like our last one we did, which was a WL Toys, wasn't it the Sky King?
Yeah.
The Sky King? And then we went back and reviewed the A600 against it. Okay, so this goes in there. And this is your balance charger, but look at this, guys. That is so nice, because then I can stuff that in there, and then I've got a global power supply, which is pretty sweet.
So it will work.
Super excited about that. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but guys, when you say it's ready to fly, people in, like say one hemisphere would like to be able to plug the thing in. For guys like me, I've already got everything I need, but some people won't. Okay, it looks like your conventional XK transmitter. There's some push buttons there. Don't know if they're going to do anything. Got a button here. Looks like some sort of fixed antenna, more or less a protection for the little wire that sticks out. More than likely, you could probably take that off and it would sit inside the cabinet. Of course, you're going to need double A's for those. Typically, you're not going to get double A's shipped with an airplane like this, but in the belly of the beast, how many did we get? Looks like we got one. Oh yeah, oh no, that's just a power cord for the main, the multi-purpose brick. And what do we have here? We have a fully max. This is a 22.2 watt hour. This is 300 milliamp hour, 7.4 volts, also known as 2S2 single cells in series, which makes 3.4 times 2 would be, or well, it'd be 4.2 times 2 would be 8.4 when you're ready to fly. So we can get this thing charging right now, and then we can jump in and start assembling this thing. We'll just go ahead and test it with this charger since it came with one. Of course, I have a million different types of chargers. I don't see any light on there. There is a light on here. Looks like the charger for lithium battery pack. Lithium ion, lithium polymer, 7.4. And then this is the model. Okay, so obviously you just plug this in with the balanced charge lead. That's a Hextronics 2S connection. And then this is a low-C discharge lead. And you'll notice that the discharge lead is only very minimally larger than the balanced charge leads. So that's going to be a little bit uncommon because, of course, your balanced charge leads are going to go to each of the cells terminals, and then the discharge is just going to come from the outermost cell, so the biggest cell, or the top of the cell and the bottom of the cell. Just like with a bigger pack like this, this happens to be a 3S, so you'll notice there's 4 wires, and then the larger discharge lead. So most of your LiPos are going to be like that. Some deviate slightly, but generally that's the way it works. Of course, if you had a charger like this, you could do that too. I've got all sorts of different types of pigtails on my balanced chargers. Check the description below. You can buy stuff like this. I think I had links to similar chargers. These all run about the same in terms of cost and style and then quality. Let's go ahead and check the voltage quick on that pack before we get too much further. Obviously, we're going to be charging it, so it's probably not going to be done. So it says charger and power. The charger's red and power's green. I'm going to unplug this. Put the negative all the way over on the negative side. It is labeled back here negative. It says 1S, 2S, all the way through 8S. So you just plug that in, and then it says 2 cells. 7.97, that's a good charge. 3.98. 3.9 out. Now, I've been charging this for just about 30 seconds, so my guess is it probably came about 3.95, a little bit high for storage. Storage should be about 3.8 volts on a lithium polymer pack. That is the prime, safest point. The chemistry is the most stable there. It's not so low it's going to die and drop back to where you can't recharge them, because those lithium battery pack chargers are going to check the voltage before it'll allow you to start the charging sequence. Because if you're at 0 or 1 or 2 volts, it's just, there's nothing there. The lithium packs use the top maybe 8 to 10% of the discharge, and then it drops off like a rock. Anybody that has a drill that runs on a lithium pack will know what I'm talking about. All right, cool. So assembly, we've got basically this little bottom pulled off because the battery's out of it right now, so we'll just leave that off. I'm just rejecting the manual for instructions right now because this is gonna be so stinking simple. You basically plop this in here, you plug in your 2 leads, and you're ready to rock and roll. You got a couple of linkages. So why don't we do batteries first? We can test all the control surfaces as we go. So we got AA batteries. You're gonna need 4 of these. Pretty simple. You just put the flat part in here. My guess is you guys know how to do this. Pretty simple step. But the flat part goes against the spring, and then the bump part goes against the other small bump in here. And of course, they had a picture in there. So if you're not 100% sure what you're doing, just follow what the diagram says. You may notice that I marked this XK800 DHC-2 Beaver. Now the reason I do that is because when you start getting a few of these, they all look the same, or they look really similar, as you can see from over on the table. This is the one from WL Hobbies. And so as you can see, you start getting a few of these, and it's really easy to mix them up. So just mark the back. You'll be happy you did it if you get 2 or 3 of these floating around. The good news is also a lot of times they'll interchangeably bind to the different airplanes, but some of them are set up different, so you need to be aware of that. That being said, okay, so while we were off camera getting batteries ready and all this good stuff, I noticed this one lead was jumped around that linkage there. You see that? So I'm actually going to fix that right now. In order to do that, you have to be very careful because these things are delicate, okay? And there's not much support on that board. So I'm going to just real carefully try to pull this out. I'm going to get my fingernail under the edge, and I know I'm going to block the view a little bit. In fact, I'm going to use an X-Acto knife. Those little micro connections are very challenging to unplug. And you need to take your time if you're going to do this, because you can yank the wires right out of the housing. You see right here, so we gotta lift that. That's my concern right there, is just because it wraps around the linkage, I can't undo it easily. So I'm gonna try another way. I'm just gonna hold this and see if I can get enough purchase. Just very gently, just trying to do it gently. Okay, good. So that came out okay. So now I'm actually gonna untangle this. You wanna go over my shoulder so you can see where I'm seeing? So then I can kind of make like a J or like a U. And this is where a pair of forceps would be really handy. I may end up getting those here in a second, but I'm just gonna guide that down. Most of you guys are gonna be doing this, not wanting to have to go get a bunch of tools. But this is just one of those things you can do. It doesn't take very much extra effort. But it'll save you a lot of trouble because you're not gonna hopefully crash your plane over it. Now, I'm not saying that you would crash your plane just by having that linkage there, getting tangled up with it, but I just don't wanna risk it. It's such an easy thing to fix. You see I got it up on the other side now. Now I'm just gonna more or less kind of hang it down here. I got my finger up against it. It's awkward to work inside of these little cabinets, these little airplanes. Got this little protector on my X-Acto knife so I don't get stabbed as easy. I've only done that on camera like what, 10 times? Okay, there we go. So I've got that pulled up almost to where I can grab it now. Okay, so we're gonna untangle that from each other. Goodness gracious. Okay, there we go. Nice, 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 nice. So now what I can do is I can secure that wire back in. And you'll notice that the linkages that go down to the elevator and the rudder, so the rudder and the elevator, are gonna be down and away from where the movement's happening. So then if you're ever trying to figure out how to plug these back in, there's a little teeny tiny tab that's right here, okay? That tab, and then on the other side, you'll notice there's the 3 little releases, and that's how you can take these wires out, is you can lift that with a knife and then pull the wires out. The way you tell what direction that goes is you sort of line that up to this little box here that receives the plug. And there's an opening on this side, and there's not an opening, but just a small crack in the middle. That's the side that takes the tab. You're not gonna be able to see as I push this in. I apologize, it's just so small. See? I'll try to do it so you can see as I slide it in. Okay, so it snaps in nicely. And then you can also look for colors. See orange, red, brown, orange, red, brown. And then you see white, red, brown. So this is the Hextronics color code, and this would be considered to be like a Futaba color code. No difference, they do the same thing, it's just that there's different color codes out there. I don't really have a preference, but I know that the Hextronics plugs typically don't have a tooth on the, they're still called micro connectors, but that'd be like on your 1.2 meter sized planes. Now this is a Y cable, so it comes out with 2 connectors. And the reason we have 2 connectors, I suppose I should probably cap this off before I gouge myself again. These 2 connectors are gonna be used to plug in the plane to the ailerons, okay? So it doesn't matter which one goes into which, you're gonna put your black to your brown, and you can also do that same little trick we talked about, looking for the tabs, and then that little crack. Just stick your little dinghy in the crack. Make sure it snaps, okay? You're secure. And like I said, it doesn't matter which one goes to which, because on the aileron channel, what's gonna happen is you're gonna basically be, making the action of these servos they're gonna be doing the same movement, except opposite one of another because of the way that they're mounted. So the ailerons are always gonna work opposite another, unless they act as flaperons, both going down at the same time, or spoilerons going up at the same time, and then also acting as ailerons. So if you've never heard of that, I've done a bunch of videos about that stuff. Okay, so you see these chases, they weren't quite in there, so I'm gonna push them down into there. And then when I drop this into this cavity, you gotta kind of be a little bit careful about those wires so they stay away from all the moving parts. Okay, so I'm gonna prefer to stick that kind of up in the front part because there's plenty of room up there. And then once I kind of get that situated, you gotta bear in mind that there's just not that much strength on these wires in terms of binding up the control surfaces. It's maybe not quite as critical as I make it sound. Okay, so there's a little receiver, and then this is what's gonna sandwich that foam wing down. Okay, so you just drop that right on there. And it almost had a snap, which is pretty cool. Man, that thing looks good. It's not even built yet and it looks good. But I can tell you right now, oh, that does look gorgeous. I can tell you right now, that wing would never hold up because it's just so flimsy. It would look like some sort of a bird flying. Okay, so now we've got these linkages. You'll notice that this side is off by 180 degrees from this. See what I'm talking about? So they're not labeled left and right, mostly because it probably doesn't matter. So the way these go on is you just snap them. Now remember, this is all mounted into foam, so you have to support behind where you're snapping. Geez, that was kind of hard to get on there. And then you want to support right underneath where you're doing this. If you could support the plastic directly, that'd be the best way, okay? Just kind of line it up and then listen for the click. Very simple, very effective. A lot more substantially strong, but still going to be weak from here out. There's nothing supporting it inside. Again, it's a very light plane, so with a light plane becomes a little bit less requirement for some of those strength reinforcements. You know, like your Carbon Z Cub, what is that, a 2.2 meter? It's big,
yeah.
86 inches or something like that. That looks really good. That single, I was afraid that was going to look bad, but it looks really nice. And by the way, that is a carbon fiber strut, and then these plastic ends are glued on. So, if you were wondering about that, it's hard to see on camera because it's just so similar looking.
It's all black. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's together.
Okay, so these wheels look awesome. Look at this. Give them a close-up of this. They really look high quality. Look at the rims on there. They spin super free. This is gonna be probably the best landing gear that we've had on one of these El Cheapo planes. And by the way, guys, this plane is not very expensive, so I'm excited to see how it performs. I'm actually a little bit tempted to see if I can get my Horizon floats to work. Now look at this, guys. This is where it's a little bit tricky. So you rotate those in like this, then you grab on the outside and that'll squish and compress and allow you to push down. Okay, once you're down, this popped off, no big deal. We'll just snap that back on, and then this snaps on to that just by pulling it out. That is really cool, really simple,
nice. Yeah.
really effective. And then that's gonna provide some strength, but it's gonna give some too. That looks gorgeous. The wheels are maybe a little bit longer than I'd like to see. And to be honest, you could probably modify that if you were wanting to. Man, I love the way it looks. Now there is a tail dragger wheel too, and there's a screw as well. The screw just came out. This screw is the screw that goes into here. So you can see it's very small. It does come with a screwdriver. It's like one of the micro screwdrivers that you get from China. Which, by the way, we're hoping China makes a full recovery from the coronavirus. Of course, some people have already died from that, which is unfortunate. Don't like to hear about that. Okay, so we've got that tightened up. Got that nice and solid. It feels great. Okay, so now are we gonna have a steerable tail wheel? No, we are not. That is super unfortunate, guys. But nice little scale looking tail dragger. I like that. I like that it comes out at the right spot. That's really cool. But I don't like that it's not steerable. That's kind of a bummer.
Is that just pressure fit in there?
Yeah, it's just pressure fit. You just kind of, it's not wanting to go all the way in, so I'm gonna have to take it out and stick it in a different angle. I can't get it shoved in there properly, so I'm gonna have to use a flat screwdriver. Flat screwdriver that's extremely small too. You can't just use any flat screwdriver. It's got to be like the one that came from the Chinese kit, except you don't often get flat screwdrivers in these Chinese kits. You just get the Phillips or whatever they call for, okay? So, oh man, we got a twist in that. Who's doing that? Jeez. I didn't do that, did I?
I don't know.
Kids probably did it. I'm gonna have to straighten that now. Okay, so you'll notice that when I pull this out, because my screwdriver is twisted like that, there's just a little bit of steel still exposed. I don't like that, but otherwise it's just gorgeous looking. Look how nice that looks. Does it sit square, or is it just in my head? Seems like it's listing a little bit. Does it seem like it's listing to you?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I don't have this situated all the way down yet. Ow. If you push really hard, you can get it in there a little bit more, but it kind of hurts. Does that look more square?
It's almost the other way now, but it's more square than it was before.
Okay, yep. I'm just going to try to push it. Oh, it did eventually kind of almost snap. Okay, how about now?
Ooh, that's pretty good.
That's gorgeous. And you'll notice it did come with another spinner and another prop, which is something you typically don't get on a plane like this. Now, there isn't another screw in there, so if you were to lose this prop, then obviously if the screw is broken off in there, you might be kind of screwed. So you'll have to look and find one. Now, this is a keyed prop. Show the people at home that. You see that little line in there?
They can see it in the black, but
there's a line. So that's going to be keyed when you put that on. But I love it. It's vented. That is really cool and super detailed. This is like
it's got some nice little details.
Verizon Bobby, you know, the company that rhymes with Verizon Bobby, would have a plane that looks like this. This is better than expected, which is pretty cool. And it's very light. My goodness, it's extremely light. This is definitely below the 250 gram threshold. Now remember, that's an all-up weight, so let's go ahead and just grab the scale and verify. All-up weight below 250 grams in the United States. You don't have to worry about the drone registry, which is current law of the land. Whoa, the charger's done. Look at this. See, the charger went to black, or not on for the charger. Now it's just power. That is incredible. I'm so happy about that. Okay, so we're in ounces. We'll just go to grams because 250 grams is easier to demonstrate. The tail's hitting, so we'll try. There we go.
Always awkward.
Okay, so look at this. With the battery, we are at 89 grams. Are you kidding me? This is a big plane for 89 grams.
That's crazy.
All up weight. I mean, okay, just for grins and giggles, you stay there. Well, actually, let's do this. I don't want to cheat and use one of my heavier planes, but we're going to cheat and use one of the heavier planes. Just to give you guys I've modified this one pretty heavily.
Oh, that's true.
Pun intended. But look at that. That's 113 grams. Now I've added flaps and LEDs and all that to this J3 Cub from Horizon Hobby. And just to give you an idea of the difference in weight, usually the Horizon Hobby Ultra Micros come in a little bit over 100 grams. And once I do one of my modifications on them, they usually end up being about 110 to 120 grams. This is not even 90. Light planes fly better, generally. It's not a tractor. Okay, so we're going to pause, get things straightened up, and then we'll go through the controls. So we are going to talk about the controls now. So obviously we have the radio with the blue light on. That means it's on. And the camera crew is going to come around. First thing we're going to do is, now that this battery's been charged, we're going to go ahead and plug in the negative. The negative is the black in this case. We're going to look at what the voltage alarm says. These things are super cheap. If you guys are going to get into RC, you need this. Wow, 4.2. 4.2,
it's like
awesome.
literally perfect.
So it's perfect. You almost never get them perfect like that. The chargers try, but that was only like a 20-minute charge cycle. That's crazy. I didn't expect that. Okay, so that is the worst thing in this plane so far, is that little cover. It's going to be very easy to lose.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we need to throw a piece of clear tape on there so that it hinges instead of popping off.
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and do that here in just a second. Obviously, that weight's not very much. So this thing's upside down. Now, this plane is equipped with 3D6G. If you're not familiar with 3D6G, it's a 3-axis gyro and a 6-axis gyro. So obviously the axis of primary flight control surfaces on a plane. If you want to come behind me, it'll be easier for people at home to understand. This is roll left, roll right. And on a mode 2 transmitter, North America uses mode 2, and then Asia uses mode 1. Okay, so they're going to be different than ours. Throttle's going to be over here. And you'll see there's an indicator on there. That's pretty cool. Then this is going to be your yaw. Yaw left, yaw right. And then elevator up, elevator down. Okay? So then aileron left, aileron right. Okay? So when you move this, so the 3G, 6G is going to be 3D6G, which is XK's product. they basically have a stabilizer to help stabilize the roll axis, the yaw axis, and the pitch axis. Not the throttle, of course. And then the 6-axis gyro is going to help to restore it to that level flight. So on normal 3D mode, or excuse me, the 6G mode, the wind's gonna blow and then the ailerons are gonna attempt to counter that, but they're not necessarily gonna bring it back to level. Well, I said that backward. The 3D mode, you can do whatever you want. It's not gonna limit your bank angles. It's gonna allow you to roll it upside down and do whatever you want and crash, okay? In 6G mode, it's going to help. As soon as you let go of the controls, it's going to bring it back to level flight. So, but it's also going to resist impact from yaw. You know, if you get pushed down, if you get pushed up, or if you get tipped, it's going to resist that by countering the output on those servos, even though you're not telling it to do it with the sticks, okay? So it'll make better sense when we show you in real life. So we're about to do that now. Being that this has a gyro, it needs to know what home position is. So we're gonna plug this in and we're gonna quickly flip it over. If you wanna show the people at home real quick inside of here, this little thing is not snapped in properly now. I'm not sure if, oh no it is. The battery is gonna slide in here in a pretty obvious position. There's not a whole lot of choice in here. It is marked the CG, the center of gravity, in the book. Okay, so I heard some beeps. Normally you want to get really quick about flipping this over, but I just don't honestly know how you can do it with that. Okay, so we're going to lay it down. If you want to come around, we'll do a control surface test. Elevator up, elevator down, roll, and you'll notice that there's the rudder moves. So that's called a coordinated or a mix. This is gonna help you do coordinated turns. So when you roll the plane, then you're gonna yaw it as well, okay? Then you've got, of course, throttle. Pretty good amount of power there. Sounds good, nice and quiet. And then, of course, your yaw. You'll notice that even just moving that over, it's very easy to get it. Yeah, very, very, very close. Now what's happening is as I'm pushing down on this, it's getting the stick to slide just a little bit forward on that potentiometer inside. So you'll want to be careful about that. There isn't any throttle cut that I know of. Now watch the controls. When I tip it, it's going to attempt to restore this plane back to a level condition. Same thing with the yaw. If you watch the rudder, it's going to try to correct as I move it, okay? It's trying to get it back to the position where it had been still last. Okay, so no matter what you do, you're going to hear this noise. That's the servos trying to correct that environmental impact that you're not telling it to do. So now there's another mode, and what you do is you typically click here, and then that's going to do there you go. So you can press on this stick, and it's going to take you out of that mode, or it's going to go into something different. And so we're going to have to experiment with it. It's crazy windy outside. Let's show them our little turbine up there.
Yeah. Our fan that's not on, that's always on, is running.
It's because it's so windy.
It's so windy. And you can tell it's windy when, like, our big trees, and it's going to be hard from in here, our big trees are moving a lot.
Show them the flags on the ground level.
Oh yeah, if you can see the little flags where we planted all our trees last year. It's kind of crazy.
So what we're going to do, guys, is we are going to go out and we're going to try to fly this thing and torture test it for you. All right, so page 9 is where you're going to find the setup or kind of, you know, like how to use the 6-axis gyro. It's pretty Changlish, this manual, so it's somewhat useless. That's why you have videos like this, I guess. Okay, so this is going to calibrate your gyros. At first, open the transmitter, put batteries in the plane. There you go. Okay, at the same time, left joystick, right joystick at the bottom. Okay, whatever. This is gonna, see that? You hear that noise? Okay, so that's gonna recalibrate the home position for this plane. So if you put in the batteries and you let it sit upside down too long, flip it over, do that, okay? So then the next thing is, as I already showed you in the video, that's gonna switch modes. You hear the one beep, you hear another beep. So that's going to change the flight modes, and it's going to be easier to see in flight, so we're going to try that. But it's so crazy windy out Couple things. Small planes like this are not really going to do great in the wind, but since I like to demonstrate their capabilities for you, then we'll do it in the crazy wind. And if it's horrible in the crazy wind, which I think it's probably going to be not great, then you'll know all the better that it's going to be great in the calm. So without further ado, we're going to start right now. Okay, so it's so windy, I'm almost afraid of rolling on the ground to take off, but we're going to try it, okay? Okay, so we're evidently not in 6-axis. Now we are. Okay, so I'm just like not hands off this time just because it's so gusty. Well, look at this, guys. That's not normal in a new plane, okay? A little bit of oscillation I can hear there. Man, it looks good. Definitely have enough power. We're having about 15 to 25 mile an hour gusts, and gusting is high. I think they were saying 30. Okay, so just kicking it into the wind. As you know, I took off I pointed my plane into the wind, of course. I'm about 30% throttle here. It's doing very good. It's pretty easy to control. I'm in the 6G mode, which is for beginners. I'm going to come out of that here in a minute, but I'm going to bring it right down by us so we can see it. I'm going to go to the other side. You stay where you are there, camera crew. Oh, the wind lulled, so I'll go around and come back.
I can't see anything, FYI. It looks good in person.
Yeah, it really does.
It's a cool scheme.
It's all right, coming around.
Okay.
You can see the downwind pass is a little bit faster than the upwind pass. The key is you can tell that we have enough juice to cut it. I'm 50% throttle right now, guys. Chop the throttle here. Just kind of slow forward, if you will. A little bit of throttle for extra control surface. You want to get a little bit more wind across those control surfaces, a little more thrust across them. And that's going to help you to control it in the crazy wind. So I'm doing a coordinated turn here where I'm actually telling it to use the rudder too. Okay, chop the throttle. Oh, lost our battery bay. What is that?
Or was it just a stick?
It's just, no, it's not a stick. It's one of those things that come
Oh,
off the landing gear.
the pants.
You want to pause it? Okay, so we replaced the wheel pant that popped off. So we're going to put this back down. It's surprisingly easy to control given the crazy wind, but it's also getting beat around a lot by the wind. It's not a very scale looking flight when you fly that fast, but if you're flying like in a tornado, then you'd be fine. We'll try coming back here. Camera crew, why don't we try to film from this direction, because look how bright it is. Okay, now I'm going to come out of the 6G mode. Oh wait, I hit the wrong button. I used the trigger. There we go. Okay, so as you can see, I'm upside down, able to do all the maneuvering we want. But the elevator axis of control is maybe not great. That's not uncommon. Pretty dang controllable. Okay, back to 6G. That 6G is pretty nice when it's crazy like this. And I wouldn't consider myself, you know, like an extremely veteran pilot, but I've been flying for about 6 years, right? 6 years? 5 years?
5 years.
5 years. So flying in the wind isn't such a huge issue, but this is strong wind for a less than 90 gram plane. That brushless motor is kicking the wind's butt. I can't believe how good it's doing. I feel like I have ample control authority too. 50% throttle, it just pooped. What was that?
What was that?
Oh, that was the back wheel. Hey, camera crew, do you see it rolling?
Yeah.
Go
Let me
look
go
for
get
it.
it.
I'll just fly. Yeah, camera crew, chase it so the people can see.
I see it.
Quick, it's gonna be muddy.
Oh, God. Ah! Jeez.
Get it?
Yep.
Let's try landing
Which side do you want me on?
Right.
I am on your right.
Okay, here we go. Okay, so you'll notice it's pointed uphill a little bit while it's flying. That's the direction the home position was reset when I recalibrated the gyro. If you want it to be level, you can do that too. I just don't want it to smash down if the wind slows down for a second. All right, camera crew, you know what we're gonna have to do now?
What?
We're gonna have to film another flight when it's not crazy, because this thing is flying really good.
Well, that's good because I can't see this one.
You mean you're not sure if the video quality's any good?
It's filming blind. It's really sunny.
Are you pressing the button to focus on the airplane?
I'm doing where I think the airplane is.
Okay, I'm gonna try to get it on the ground this time, probably. As you can see, it's just getting kicked around like crazy. Okay, here we go, coming in. Kind of chopping the throttle. I don't want to screw this plane up. It's pretty. Ooh! There we go. Let's see how bad it damaged it. Now that tail dragger isn't on there, so it should basically kind of try to stay put. Whoa, that bushing thing is about ready to pop off, right? So I wonder where the other half of it is.
I don't know.
All right, we're going to pause it and find it, guys. Come right back. All right, guys. So we found this little piece. That's the retainer clip that holds the back wheel on, that tail dragger. And then I want to show you the assembly in case this pops off on yours too. So you've got the wheel that the camera crew chased down. Thank goodness she did that. And then you can see how this piece is just loose on there, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I need to put the tire back on, or the wheel, and then it sticks in there. And then I need to take this little piece, and it looks like the glue was on the outside, so I'm gonna try to get that lined up with the center hole. Okay, and we're just gonna slip that down onto the steel. Okay, so now that's allowed to spin free. I don't feel like there's a lot of pressure on it. And then I'm gonna use, this is a non-foam safe BSI CA. Cyanoacrylate. And just also known as super glue. And so watch what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna do one drip here, just a little teeny drip. And then I'm gonna take this as Instacure, also known as Kicker. And this stuff will set that like almost instantaneously. Okay, now watch. Watch this, just on the tip, just touch it. That stuff's already set, I bet.
Probably.
This is something, when I was building planes as a little kid, I didn't fly. I never actually had an opportunity to fly radio-controlled airplanes successfully until I was basically a young adult. But I used to use this stuff as a kid building balsa wood planes. And it is awesome. But the thing is, this is really awesome when you use this, because this takes seconds to dry, just long enough to get your fingers stuck to it. This sets it almost instantaneously. Now watch this, look. Nothing comes off. It's clean. The only residue is this. It's almost like a coconut oil water sort of mix, and then that's fixed. So very, very impressive flight, guys. This is horrible flying weather, and this little thing should not do it. But let me tell you something. It does it, and it does it really well. So we are going to basically stop this video. And you're either gonna see this, and then you're gonna see another one, or you're gonna see another one first, and then we'll have this one at the end. Thanks for watching, guys. If this is the end, come back for more. Check the link in the description below. You can buy this for your very own. It's a beautiful little plane, and I like it a lot. It's probably about as easy as it gets to fly, but it also looks good. Now, just to give you, let's juxtapose. This is the little Carbon Cub S-500. A little bit more resilient to damage, but look at how much less beautiful it is. And I'm not saying this is a bad looking plane, but this thing is gorgeous compared to this. And I'm not talking about the style plane. I love Sport Cubs. I like them better than the Beaver. But look at the detail. Look at the wheels. This thing has these hokey wheels. They're both similar price points, but this thing is way better and it flies great. So I'm super excited to see if I can fly it with the jumper. I believe you might be able to bind it to the jumper. And for those of you who don't know, the jumper is a multi-protocol transmitter. and it replaces many times one of these. And so you can fly. And I know it works on the Sky King, and I know it works on the A800. So I'm assuming that there's probably been a protocol hacked to use it with. And this, it's an open source thing, so I'm really excited to try that too. That's gonna help us with the touchy elevator when we're out of the full 6G mode, meaning in 3D mode. You can go upside down and all that stuff. But there's just not that much to show when it's this windy. So we are gonna come back right away. So we're gonna continue this experience with the Beaver, and we're gonna try using the jumper to control it, which as you can see, it's already kind of running. So I don't mean to let the cat out of the bag, but it does work. I'm gonna walk you through the entire process, but I wanna tell you two things that I had to do on my model that you might have to do on yours, or at least you should think about. When I was flying in that first flight, you'll notice it was vibrating really bad. I balanced the prop, and I get crap from people all the time about this, the model aficionados out there that say this is wrong. Well, sorry, it's not wrong. Whatever gets the job done is right. So I'm gonna show you how I did that real quick, because that's very important, okay? I have a piece of tape. In fact, I'm gonna take it off so you can see how much of an improvement it is. So I just use just like a regular piece of Scotch tape. It's nothing special. And what I do is, in my case, I marked it so you could kind of see there's a little red mark on the end there, okay? It's very subtle because I used just a regular Sharpie marker, and I marked one side of it. You don't have to mark it. You can just remember it's only 2 blades. It's not very hard. You hear that vibration? It's pretty bad, okay? So the first thing I do, and I'm going to just show you start to finish really quick, I take a regular pair of scissors, and I take regular Scotch tape, and show them an up-close shot of this here, camera crew. See how it's got that little perforation on there? And normally when you cut this, you get that perf on the tape. I always use scissors to cut it, and then you don't get that perf. And it's a very finite detail, but the thing is, as you're doing this, you're gonna thank me, because when you peel it off and it rips one of those perfs, then you're gonna do it like 30 times. So I'm just gonna cut this, and the way I start is I just take a small piece. Now this happens to be the right size because I've already done this, and I'm gonna apply it approximately in the same spot. Now I just start on one side, and when it gets better, then I do more or I do less. If it gets worse, I just go to the other side. Okay, so if you were to put it in here, you would have the same amount of weight, but you would make less impact on the performance of the prop, okay? So I want it to be most of the way out, and I'm just gonna put that flat edge up against the bottom of the prop there. And then what that does for me is it mitigates the amount of flat against this curved surface here, okay? Because that curved surface is not gonna receive the tape quite as good. And you just don't want a big edge on it, okay? So I'm gonna run my fingernail across there. Right? And then you don't create much extra drag. There is a lot of drag on a prop. That's part of a prop. See how much better that is? A huge improvement, and that took me like, what, 30 seconds worth of video time? Of course, if you're doing it on your own, it might take you 5 minutes if you haven't figured it out yet. So I spent probably 5 minutes doing it myself. That's the first thing. The second thing I did was I put a piece of tape here like we talked about. So now when I open my battery bay, it doesn't actually flop off and fall on the ground. That's really annoying. You're gonna find that out quick, okay? The third thing I did, and I did this off camera because I didn't want to waste your time if it didn't work, was I checked to see that the transmission protocol would work with jumper. And it is a Futaba protocol, so it does work. As you can see, you got elevator, rudder, ailerons, and then of course there's one other control axis we have, and that is to turn on and off the 6G and go to the 3D mode. A 3D mode, of course, is just going to be stabilization and like a very small hint of auto leveling sort of recognition there. It's more of a heading hold, meaning whatever direction you're going, it keeps going that direction. Whereas auto leveling will restore it to a level in true flight. Okay, so 6G is the mode you're going to use when you're starting, and then 3D is what you're going to use when you get sick of it and you want to actually do things like go upside down. So, without further ado, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. It's pretty easy. Obviously, you've already got this radio set up to do it, but channel 5 is what you want to activate. So I'm going to walk through the entire setup, start to finish here. The first thing you have to do is you have to pull this screw out of the top of the wing, okay? Because you have to get to the bind button. And so as you know, there's these wing struts, so you have to pop those off. I would encourage you to go on this rather than down here. This is more vulnerable. Which seems weird. It shouldn't be that way, but it is. So once you pop that free, then it just tips down. And then of course you can lift up the front, the tail of the wing. You're just gonna lift it up carefully and then just pivot the wing. Remember, you got your leads attached. And then there's this little bind button here, okay? So if you press and hold that button, then you can bind it in here. And I'll show you the process, but I'm not actually gonna bind it because it's already bound. Okay, so I'm gonna turn this off, in fact, and just to show you how this works. This may already work because it's been bound once. So I'm gonna just turn this on and then we'll know right away. I'm gonna just hold the prop with my hand so it can't cut me if it would start. So, see how it's not moving? Okay, now watch this. I'm gonna press and hold this button. I don't know if I'm making the switch. Okay, pressing and holding, and then I let go. That reboots the receiver, and then you'll hear the twitch when it comes back online, okay? Okay, so it's working. It's working now with this transmitter, okay? So you can do the same thing. It's really hard to unplug the battery and hold that and do all that at once. So now, that's just to prove to you that this is working. So I'm gonna shut this off. That's the factory one. I'm gonna grab the prop just in case it would decide to do something crazy. Okay, so now we're gonna turn this one back on. Comes up with the deviation logo, nothing special there. Now you wanna go to the other side behind me, please. Mm-hmm. So the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna go in and create a new model, okay? So I'll walk you through that. So model menu, model setup, we're gonna load a new model, okay? So we'll just, this is model 10, okay? There's nothing magical about it. If you don't even, why don't we just do 11 just to make sure it's actually new, okay? So we're gonna change it from heli to plane. We're gonna use the default icon. We'll change the name. So we'll just walk through here, caps, and we'll just call this the Beaver, caps, B-E-E, is it A? Mm-hmm. V-E-R. Okay, done. And then we'll walk down here to the, leave the power where it is, it'll automatically set. So Devo, you'll walk all the way over to, there it is, the Futaba, s-fhss, okay? And then it says reinitialize. So you see over here, guys, it may already be initialized, I doubt it. So it's not initialized, but watch this. Now I'm gonna just grab the prop. This thing's not strong enough to start on my hand. You wouldn't do that with a big plane, obviously, because it might be strong enough. Okay, so we're reinitialized, and you notice nothing happens. Well, that's because it's not in bind mode, okay? So what I have to do is I have to press this, and this is just awkward to film, but just watch. Camera crew. Press and hold this button. It's on that squishy tape, so it just moves. Okay, now that it's there, it should basically start right away. But I'm gonna go ahead and reinitialize. And then basically once you reinitialize, now it's working. Okay, so this thing's controlling it instead of that. So whatever global identifier code that you use on here, if you want to use more than one of them, you can change that in this menu here. So right here, this fixed ID.
Here, I'll come right behind you.
This fixed ID, and then check for glare, because I know seeing glare is bad.
Okay on this side.
See that? You can change that number if you want to have more than one of them. Like if you had kids that you wanted both to fly on this, you can change one of those numbers. So now we can close this back up because we're done in there. You can see everything is obviously as it was. There's been no modifications made. So we'll just drop this down real quick, and then we'll go ahead and clip this back on. Cool thing is you really don't even need that back screw. I don't like having to go to press bind buttons on these little microplanes. That's one thing that Horizon has done pretty good on theirs. And then actually most of the manufacturers anymore. See, I'm going to push down on the bottom of the belly because it's hard to get enough purchase with the screwdriver. Otherwise, you're just pushing against a like a coffee cup. There's just not any strength there. Okay, so now that's in. Both sides are snapped. Always check these things every time you're done flying because they like to pop off too, I noticed. So now at this point, we can lay it on the ground. Check our control surfaces. Well, actually, let's walk out of the menu. Okay, so we're in just a regular mode. Elevator up, elevator down. Roll left, roll right. Rudder left, rudder right. Okay, so everything's working. Of course, throttle's gonna go when I do this. Throttle, there's full throttle. Okay, so there's no throttle cut yet. I'll show you how to set that up right now. That's one of the few safety features I really truly believe in is we're gonna go to mixers. We're gonna go straight down to throttle. And then this is where you wanna be careful, okay? I'm just gonna put this right here in case it decides to do something stupid, okay? So this is where you wanna be really careful because when you turn this safety on, you have to set it to a value, and it will automatically, if you bump a button, it's going to set it to that control. So the safety value you can't modify. So the best thing to do is on this step, go ahead and unplug the battery. That'll get you out of harm's way. Keep your plane from running into the keyboard like I did to mine earlier. Okay, so now you can go down to safety, and you're going to set that to whatever switch you want. I always use switch H, and the value scrolls down to -150. Now you could do -100 if you want, but I want it to be well below 0. This isn't going to be a gas plane, so it shouldn't be a big deal at all. Okay, so switch H1, so that's when it's pulled up toward me. Okay, so now we'll walk out of there. Now you'll notice that in this side of the menu structure, it says revert at the top instead of save. So on this side of the menu structure, you have to save anything you do when you walk out. It's just totally not intuitive, and it's very clunky. That's why I'm walking through. So we're not going to set anything up on that. Okay, so camera crew, can you switch to the other side and see if you'll be able to see okay? Because it's a little easier on my brain.
Oh, yeah. That's fine.
So basically we want to change this to complex so I can turn on Expo, and you have to change the curve to Expo. So on Expo, I want it symmetrical, and I'm just going to set it to like, this is on, was this on elevator or ailerons? I'll do like 30, okay? You may want a little bit less than that, but I'm going to just set it to 30. Elevator, you're going to want a lot. Curve. See, now you can do Expo on simple, but I don't like it because then if you ever add a mix, it's just a pain in the butt to go in and change it all back. So curve, scroll over to Expo. And like I said, there's probably easier ways to do this. I'm just kind of learning the jumper setup, and it's just so dang clunky. I just do whatever the first thing that works. Okay, and then rudder, we're going to change that to complex. And I'm pretty sure we're going to want 2 on this one. 2 mixers. We're on page 1. The switch is none. Replace rudder 1-to-1. We're going to walk over to Expo 0. And then we'll change that to, probably on the rudder, we'll do like 40. Whoops. Save. Okay. And then we're going to go to page 2. And then we're going to go to Mux. And I don't know if it's add. I think we're going to just add aileron. Okay. And then you see how it switched it to rudder. So we'll see if that works. And then on channel 5, we need to turn that on. We're going to change that to simple for now. Actually, I think we do have to actually do that as complex too, which is a pain. And we need to set it to 2 mixers. On page 1, we're going to change curve to 0 max. Okay, good. We're going to leave the scale at 100, offset at 0, and then we're going to assign it to a switch. Now, I want it to be this switch, which is G. This is going to turn on our 6G versus 3D. Okay, and just so you know, you guys can skip past this if you don't want to see all this setup, and you could just use, you know, your stock radio, but this is going to be a nice calm flight, calmer flight. Okay, so you want to see that change. It's not changing yet, so I don't have it right yet. See how it's changing now? See how it changes now? That means it's actually making change. And I can walk up, and I'm going to save it because I don't want to screw up the changes. I'm going to walk back in. Then I'm going to go to page 2, and you notice it changes to a different line, which is super obnoxious. So now we have to change that from, we have to go to the same 0 max, and then we have to do an offset. Well, actually, I'm going to set the scale to 125. Offset's going to bring it all the way down to 0. Okay, so that means we'll be top and bottom of the scale. And I want to change the source to this and this. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to go to page 1 again, and I'm going to change the scale to 125%. Okay, now I'm going to save that before I screw it up, and then I'll walk out to the main menu. First thing I'm going to notice, do is I'm going to check throttle. Okay, so throttle stays at -150, okay? So that's the most important thing. Then when I shut that off, it allows me to move the throttle. So throttle cut's working, that's very important. Now we can go ahead and re-energize the circuit. This is not going to be the battery we will fly with because I've been playing with the setup. Okay, let it initialize however much you want. You can still reset the gyros the same way you did before. I'm just gonna, for safety's sake, I'm gonna find something that will allow the prop to spin, but it's not gonna go off the table. Okay, so elevator, rudder, ailerons, and then I don't have my mix figured out yet for rudder to aileron mix. Okay, so now I'm gonna test my throttle cut. It's working. And then with the throttle cut off, it doesn't start spinning. That's good. But it does give us throttle, so throttle cut's back on for safety. Now I need to check this side to see if it turns on 6G. See, that's not 6G mode because it's basically gonna go back to neutral after a second. That's like the mild heading hold, okay? Now when I switch that, that should auto level, but it's not. So I gotta play with this for a minute, we'll come right back. Okay, so I'm changing something here because the switch is set to the correct switch to control channel 5, but we're not actually changing the output. And this is where I get so confused because it says source and then it says switch, okay? So source you can change to channel 5, like that. But you can't press anything or it'll override your change, okay? Then go to page 1 and do the same thing. Okay, so it says scale. There we go, source. Okay, switch is correct. Now we want to change this to channel 5 as well. Okay, so now that should impact change for us. So that was within channel 5 setup under complex. Okay, so now we can walk out. And the first thing I'm going to do is go to transmitter menu, channel monitor. Now watch, this should change. Except it doesn't, so I didn't get it right. So you see when I flip that switch, it doesn't change where that bar or any of the positions are. So I must have got that backward. Okay, so you see now it's moving. So this actually tells you the switch condition, but that tells you the output condition, okay? So I wonder if I have both of those doing the same thing. So if I go to page 2, see how it switched Z, G1. See, it's not changing anything here, guys, so I gotta figure out why. See how it's not changing anything, guys? I think I had it right. I just think that I need to change page 1 to the opposite. See how it's changing, but then it doesn't ever drop down below. So I'm gonna play with this just a minute and come right back. Okay, so we're gonna try something different here. We're gonna go back to mixers and change it to just 1. And then that means there's only 1 page now. And I'm gonna set my switch to the G0, that's the one I want to use. That's only an on-off switch, it's not a 3-position switch. And then I want to replace with switch GO as well, G0 as well. See how it's not doing anything? Now I can change that to channel 5. Okay, and it's at min-max, and then the scale's 125 and no offset. Okay, so we're gonna save that. Now we're gonna walk back out to transmitter menu and then channel monitor. And see, there's still no change. So we'll play with it some more. Okay, so I figured it out. First, I'll show you in transmitter channel monitor. Okay, so you see channel 5 here. It's tied to this switch. See how it switches? You notice it's 125. Now let's show them real quick. So this is kind of like turning on 6G mode there. So you're gonna attempt to level the aircraft, and that's just regular, like a heading hold sort of stabilization. And then that's auto leveling. Easiest way to see if auto levelings work is turn it upside down. Okay, you do have to have 125% or some greater than 100. So I'm gonna walk you in and show you exactly how I did it because it's like super counterintuitive. Okay, so model setup, whoops. Transmitter menu, excuse me, model menu, mixers. Then go to your channel 5 and go over to complex. I assign mine to G. You could do to any 2-position switch or 3, but you'd have to pick the top and the bottom probably for the easiest way. So there's 2 mixers, meaning 2 pages. Then you make page 1, you set it to G0, and then you're gonna replace for mux, and you're gonna set it to switch G0. And then min-max is the curve, scale's 125. Then you're gonna walk over to page 2, and it's gonna be switch G1, which is the other condition. You're going to replace the mux with G0, okay? And then the min-max, and what it looks like inside of here, because this won't change anything here, you can see this is just telling you what the condition of the switch is, okay? This little dot, and then this is the output. If that doesn't change, you're not going to have any impact on the flight performance, okay? So I'm actually just going to walk back. I'm not going to save anything, because at this point, we're ready to basically put a different battery in it and fly it, okay? So, without further ado, we'll be coming right back flying it. Okay, so in the previous video, or the first part of this video, I talked about how you could initiate the gyro in a different position so that the plane flies level and true instead of flying like this, like it's sitting on the ground. I don't like it flying with that angle of attack. It looks stupid. I want it to fly level. So what I'm going to do is, before I actually start this, I'm going to do this with the throttle cut on, sticks down and away from one another, and then listen. Hear that little jump? That's when you can let go. So it's reinitiated the gyro. So we're going to go ahead and go out and fly it now. Okay, so here goes nothing. We got much lighter breeze today.
But still not calm.
That's 20% throttle. We are not in 6G mode here. Still needs more expo on the elevator, I think. But as you can see, plenty of power. That's like 80% power there. There's 100%. So it'll do all the crazy things you'd like to do. And then I'm going to get into a flat flight and then turn on the auto leveling. There's 6G mode. As you can see, it kind of holds it nice and level for you. And I'm going to come into the wind here for a second, and you guys can see the stick condition. Okay, so as you can see, the stick condition is basically, I'm doing nothing and it's flying. Now, it's not going to do that forever, because eventually you're going to run into something. Chop the throttle here out of the 6G mode. 3D mode is what I'm flying in. It's a pretty high performance plane if you really get right down to it. I love the look. I love the yellow, or excuse me, the orange, especially in this environment when you're coming at yourself. You've got that orange line that really helps you to tell the attitude of the aircraft. And especially up against the trees right now without any foliage on them. So, thoughts about the jumper. The jumper doesn't make the plane fly that much different. What I want to do is I want to insert some more expo on the elevator. Can they see that? Throttle cuts on and tested. So we're just going to press enter. We're in a model menu, mixers, go up to the complex side of elevator. And you can see we've got elevator expo at 35. We're just going to go kind of crazy on it. We'll set it to like 50, which is a lot. I would virtually never do that on a plane unless I had done something weird to it. Okay, so throttle cuts off. Oh yeah, that's a lot more tame. But you can still see it's a little bit pitch sensitive. Almost just need a little bit of trim. You can kind of see how that heading hold is working. As soon as you let go of the controls, it just kind of really pretty much doesn't move. And that's not maybe the best. You know, it doesn't teach you the way a plane would typically respond without some sort of a stabilization on it. And we do have a pretty good amount of wind. Did you hear that, Rooster? Mm-hmm. Does loops really nicely. That wing, I was concerned it wouldn't be strong enough, but it's been really performing well. Very little flex. Nice flat wing for nice, tight, crisp maneuvering. You can do all the crazy stuff you want to do with this plane. You can fly upside down. You can fly right side up. You can do all that stuff. Plenty of elevator authority. I don't do a lot of upside down flying. I've had too many bad experiences with it. I don't like the deadband in the elevator axis though still. I want to change it some more even. So I'm going to come around here and take a landing. You'll notice I'm kind of hopping around. I want it to be more controllable, but look how nice it lands. It's pretty good for a very, very light plane on a somewhat windy day. Okay, so we're gonna walk back in. Throttle cuts on and tested. Okay, so we're gonna go back to model menu, mixers, complex side of that. We're gonna go down to, whoops. That would be a bad thing to do. I'm just gonna go kind of crazy. I could change the rates too, but I don't really want to do that. So remember to save on the way out. Okay, here we go. Oh yeah, now I gotta really move the stick to get it to do anything, which is good. A lot of lift coming off that hill right now. You can see the turbulence. Sorry, camera crew. Did I scare you?
No, I just can't see very good.
The plane it does pretty good for a little cheapie. I'm surprised how good it does. I'm a little bit disappointed. I figured I'd get a bigger improvement from having the jumper involved in the equation. But that's actually a good thing for those of you that aren't going to be using the jumper, because that means that you're getting a pretty controllable plane right off the bat. And a lot of these ready to fly planes, like for instance, let me give you an example, just to compare it to Verizon Bobby, the company that rhymes with Verizon Bobby. They've got the Sport Cub SUMX, and it would never be flying in this condition, and it has a brushed motor, but also it costs more. So I'm not saying it's a lot more. That plane is heavier. It's a little bit better looking, in my opinion. The finish is slightly nicer on it, but I mean, it's really close to this. This plane has auto leveling and it has the stabilization. I think that the Sport Cub SUMX flies a little bit better. I think the technology is a little bit more refined, but I think this plane is a lot better value. And I hate to say that, but you know, there's a lot of things that Verizon Bobby does nicely, and then there's some few things that they get beat on. It's very rare that they do get beat on stuff like this, and XK is one of the few El Cheapo brands that can perform up against a Horizon Hobby, because Horizon Hobby is one of the arguably upper echelon hobby providers out there. And I know some of you are going to say, oh, well, I've had bad experience with them. Yeah, whatever. We've all had bad experiences with all of them, guys. Let's just get real. You know, we're buying a piece of foam that's shipped from China to the middle of America or wherever you happen to be. I mean, expect some damage, expect some frustration. It's just kind of what's going to happen when you have a cheap component like this. You know, you got people that have to make a living doing it. They're not going to be able to never make a mistake. The way I look at it with radio controlled stuff is who takes care of you best when something goes wrong. That's how I judge the company. Not the fact that something went wrong, although it'd be better if you didn't have to deal with it. That's kind of impractical on radio controlled airplanes and helis and all that stuff. But now back to this plane. Very good plane. Very good value. Very pretty. Minimal amount of effort to set up. If you're using a jumper, it's not the plane's fault that the jumper is a pain in the butt to set up. Let's just get that out there. If the jumper were easier to use, I would definitely like it and be more prone to use it, because it's nice and small, it's very inexpensive, and it's very flexible. But it's a pain in the butt to set up. And I'm used to Spectrum, so my preference is Spectrum. That doesn't mean that jumper's bad, or that open source is bad, or that deviation is bad and that Spectrum stuff is good. It just means I'm more used to one versus the other. You can see those flat turns. This is all in 3D mode, guys. So if I go to 6G mode, Let's do 6G mode for a few minutes here. Sorry about the sun there, guys. Obviously, it's going to limit your bank angles, so you got to be a little bit careful around obstructions like houses and cars and animals and kids and trees. So you may need to alter your flight performance a little bit. But you can see you can really keep this thing in a pretty tight space. Look at this. We have a 37-foot approach here, and I'm pretty much flying. Pretty much flying within the 37 feet. As you can see, it didn't end well. But even with this wind, guys, look at this. Look at this. Oh, come on. I almost had it. I was just trying to do it so I wouldn't squish it. Challenge accepted, me. All right, guys, we're going to catch this thing just to say it can be done. Okay, out of the throttle. You'll notice the elevator mix. See that? When I give it throttle, it's pulling the nose up. That's part of the multi-purpose brick. It's not actually part of the jumper. So you can't take that out. There you have it. That's what you get for screwing around. I'm gonna go fix that right now and we'll keep flying some more. This has a black cap. This is a foam safe, medium cure or medium thickness. This stuff is not foam safe. I don't know for sure if you can use it on that EPP, I believe it is, because it might adversely affect the foam. So real quick, what I'm gonna do is I'm basically gonna, this stuff is a little bit thicker than it could be because I've had it for a long time. And so I'm just gonna get it to where it's coming out the nozzle. This Bob Smith Industries stuff is the stuff I like the best. I have links to it in my descriptions. So basically, once I get this coming out, I think I might need to clear the nozzle. Sorry, guys. So we got a little bit of that CA there. This is cyanoacrylate. This is a foam safe product. And so when I put this on here, this is like a medium thickness, so it's got small gap filling capability. Normally I would go straight to another product called Kicker, but I'm actually going to spread this in there a little bit. You can see it's a little thicker than it would normally be by default. Then I'm just going to grab that out of the Kicker. It's a lot easier to apply it that way, and that's just going to set the CA right away. Okay, so just let that set up for a second. Then you see this tape joint here. I'm just going to push that tape back together. We might want to add another piece of tape before we go back out. But you can see the difference between an EPP product and an EPO, like the Sport Cub 500. That's going to be an EPP, or an EPO rather. I believe it's EPO. But it's way more flexible, but it's less pretty. Okay, so I'm just going to do a little bit more of this. Come on. Come on, you can do it. Okay, we'll pause. So guys, I'm just going to do a little bit of, just a little teeny bit of glue along this seam. And once I get along the seam, then I can take this little brush, the sprayer tip. I use it like a brush. And I just go along that. And that's going to be set up in like 10 seconds. I mean, it's going to be set up almost instantly, but it's going to be fully set up in about 10 seconds. Now, the next step for us is going to be to just kind of fix that quick tape joint there. You see how it's still held together. It wouldn't break off right now, but I would like to have that, maybe one more piece of tape out at the end, just kind of hold things together. So we'll pause and come right back. So you see these things? That's the other thing I was talking about earlier, is that these things will pop off really easy, the wheel pants. Just like that. And by the way, my radio is on, so we still have this thing under control. You'll notice that everything is nice and sturdy again, or at least sturdy as it was on the other side. So we'll go ahead and tape it next. Okay. So we've got two pieces of tape we're going to need, top and bottom. So you cut them fairly small. And you see how there's a little bit of a gap there? That gap is not the problem. We just want to make sure that this thing acts as a hinge and it's not allowed to flop around in the wind, if you will. So just push it up and then down, and then that tacks it to the seam. And so now the tape rides down into the bottom of the seam and then back up. So that'll make it nice and sturdy. And it's going to get a little dumb for a second. So then on the other side, I'm going to actually hold this apart like that. Same thing. See, I'm pulling it apart, guys. And then I want to push it down a little bit and then kind of squish it together. What that's going to do is that's going to make that seam close up the tape. So the tape is actually going to tuck down in there. Okay. So now, before we start flying again, we'll just do a quick surface test and just make sure they all go the right direction. Okay. So the other thing too is, first of all, you see the elevators working. Now we're in our 6G mode, and you'll notice that when I run the ailerons, it also actuates the rudder. Okay. So that's because it's tied in the multi-purpose brick in there. It's not actually part of the jumper signal. It's part of the setup on there. So we're just going to show you that everything's fixed. I'm going to go back to 3D mode, and it's finding the wind for us.
Apparently.
I actually, since we don't have a steerable tail wheel, I kind of got to give it some throttle. Here we go. So as you can see, it's still flying great. Elevator is doing just fine now. This is right after repair. We'll go ahead and do 6G mode here. Let's do a couple of quick landings and then we'll be done. That's good. Okay, trying to find the wind here. With no steerable nose gear or tail gear, you kind of gotta be careful about how you land, because where you land, it's gonna continue going. You gotta get up enough airspeed to have that rudder be effective. Okay, out of the 6G mode. I don't know if you guys caught that. That was the first landing with 6G there. Boy, it looks good, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. The coordinated turns really make it look good. So what's the moral of the story, guys? If you like this little plane, if you like the way it looks, if you like the de Havilland Beaver, if you like Beaver in general, just go online and get one. I mean the plane. Look at that beauty. That is really pretty up there. I'm out of the throttle all the way. It's just tractoring into the throttle. You notice there's a resonant frequency on that. Where I go a certain speed, the propeller will start to kind of shake and shudder the plane a little bit. Oh, that's so gorgeous. Look at that. I was going to do a touch and go. Woohoo!
Like
Cut
that?
the grass. Whoa, what's...
You got something stuck to you now.
Oh, what is it? It's like
Just
a streamer.
Grass.
Let's land and see what it really is. Maybe it's like a spider web. Maybe it's a giant bundle of spiders, Camel Crew.
I'm leaving if that's the case.
Let's see what it is. I think it might be like you said.
I'm going to go with that instead.
Yeah, it's just a giant bundle of spiders. We're just going to spread
them all over our yard.
Millions of little baby spiders. My camera crew loves spiders. I also do, though.
You do too.
Okay, out of the throttle. Ah! All right, let's see how many spiders are there. Oh, it's not even any.
Bummer.
Oh, look, it got you flowers.
Thanks.
It's kind of like a
so sweet.
dead one. It's
Sounds
dead
about
and
right.
ugly.
Yep.
Here.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Put that in a vase.
Yeah. Okay, so in closing, folks, this plane is really cool. I like it a lot. Is it the best thing since sliced bread? I don't know if I'd go that far, just because there's been a few of them lately that have been very good too. It is a beautiful little plane. I really like the fact that it's jumper compatible right away. That Futaba s-fhss right away. You don't even need a module or anything. You don't need a satellite receiver. That's pretty cool. It's not the most resilient plane out there, but it does come with a spare prop, and it does come with a flexible wing. It's going to be somewhat forgiving, but as you can see, we broke that thing pretty easy. It hardly hit the ground. So do I like it a lot? I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being my carbon cub, I would say this is probably in the 7 to 8 range. It's a really good plane. And I'm really hoping my son will fly it, because he could easily fly this thing, and it'll be a blast for him. Guys, check the description below. If you didn't realize it already, if you hadn't heard me, at the bottom of the well, actually at the top of the description, I usually include links to these things, and if you buy them, you help support the channel, and you'll get to see more of this wonderful footage. And that's all we got for you. Thanks for watching. Come back for more. All right, guys, I know you thought we were done, but I did too. I forgot. I figured this out. So earlier I was trying to figure out the rudder to aileron tie, and you'll notice that this, as I move the aileron, this rudder moves a little bit, okay? That mix is so counterintuitive to me. Of course, your rudder still works with this control, and that's out of the 6G mode. I'm just in 3D mode. So when I go to 6G, then it automatically does a little bit of that anyway, so you just get a little bit more. You'll notice by when I turn it on and when I turn it off, okay? So anyway, I'm gonna show you how to do that. So basically from the regular screen, I've got my throttle cut on and tested, okay? Model menu, mixers, and then you go down to rudder. Under complex, you change it to two mixers, and then on page 2, you can add, the mux is add, not replace. The source is aileron, so you can either move the stick or you can just scroll it in. The expo, I'm going to do 0, and then the scale is 50. Now, if I did this all the way at 125, then you have to save your changes before it's going to show up here. Okay, so save. Now watch. So now it's going to actually reach all the way over there. Okay, so now if I go back into that, I can go to page 2, and then I can set that less. I had it at 50. I'm going to just show you. Let's just show you what it looks like with 10. It'll barely move. Okay, so we'll save that. See how it barely moves? But it's still moving a little bit. Okay, so normally what I would do, and make sure you go to page 2, because that's where your mix is going to be. The first page is just a regular control for your rudder. So I'm going to set it to like 40, okay? Save it. Real nice. And then if you want that to be activated with a switch, you can go into page 2 and you can activate it with a switch. So the switch would be, currently it's set to none. I'll set it to that. So I'm going to hit save. Now what's going to happen is, as I move my ailerons, it's going to work. Then when that condition is not met, it doesn't do it. See? So the only time it mixes is when that's up there. So pretty simple way of doing it. It's just that the nomenclature and the steps that you use in the jumper T8SG are so foreign to me. It's not really hard. It's just that I don't know how to do it. So I'm learning, and you're learning with me. So thanks for watching my Beaver, guys. It was my pleasure to share it with you.